I'm not sure how many of you all will remember this story, and to be honest, the only reason I remember it is because it happened on Halloween night. I remember seeing this story, and it was like something straight out of a horror movie, like a slasher film, except there was no knives involved. But anyway, it was Halloween night 2015. I believe it was 2015 in Pendleton, South Carolina. 4 people were found dead inside of a home. These 4 people were all part of the same family and a daughter. The daughter of one of the victims is the one who stumbled across the murder scene. And she called the police, obviously. And over the next few days and weeks, she did probably over a dozen interviews with her husband. And I mean, she was getting emotional, crying during these interviews, breaking down. And at one point, I remember they were criticizing the police department about their investigation, saying they weren't really doing their jobs, they weren't investigating right. And this daughter, she wanted to be a closer part. She wanted to play a closer part in the investigation and all of this stuff. Well, the story kind of went away, right? I mean, so many true crime cases, so many stories like this one have happened since then. And now here we are, 2023, 8 years later. And guess what? That daughter that was all over the place, doing every interview she could, crying, criticizing investigators. It turns out that her and her husband were just released they were just arrested for the murder of her 4 family members. I want to go ahead and roll this news clip. Before I do, hit that thumbs up button. We got to get those likes up, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to roll this news clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
In 2015, 4 members of the same extended family were gunned down inside their home in Pendleton, South Carolina, Halloween night. The daughter of one of the victims, granddaughter of another victim, who discovered the scene and called 911, appeared all over local news talking about how awful it was, etc. Now, 8 years later, she has been arrested for the murders, which makes these comments she made in the immediate aftermath that much more fascinating and significant.
I keep feeling like I should be waking up from a dream right now, and it's just not happening. So yeah, it's like a movie or something.
Well, if it's like a movie, then Amy Velarde, who you just saw there, may be up for Best Supporting Actress alongside her husband Ross, also seen there, because now they're the ones who just got arrested and charged with all 4 murders.
We have arrested Ross Moore, a.k.a. Ross, Wayne Velarde, and Amy Velarde. They're in our custody right now, and they have been charged with murder for the quadruple homicide.
Charged for the 2015 fatal shootings of her own mother, Kathy Scott, Kathy's husband, who's Amy's stepfather, Michael, as well as Amy's grandmother, 82-year-old Violet Taylor, and her stepfather's mother, 80-year-old Barbara Scott. The 4 gunned down inside Amy's mother's home, allegedly by Amy, who then called 911. In what has to be the most brazen part of that 2015 interview, it's saying a lot, 3 days after the murders, Amy actually had the audacity to sneak in a little criticism of law enforcement for not keeping her in the loop about the investigation.
And I understand, there again, they've got a job to do, but sometimes as family members, we want answers. And we just want to know what's going on.
Well, better late than never, because 8 years later, Amy probably now has a pretty firm grasp on the status of the investigation. In fact, at one point in that interview, the local reporter with News Nation's affiliate WSPA in South Carolina asked Amy a question that, in retrospect, like almost seems like out of a Hitchcock film.
If you were talking directly to the person, do you want to look in the camera and just say exactly what you would say to that person?
I can't say that on TV.
Well, you got to give her some points for honesty. Join us now is Chad McBride, Sheriff of Anderson County, South Carolina, where the murders took place. Sheriff, thanks very much for taking the time. Appreciate it. All right, so do we know anything about the alleged motive for this 8 years later?
Well, Mr. Abrams, thanks for having me. And yes, sir, we do. Unfortunately, this is one that we are keeping very close to the vest. This has been a long time coming. 8 years is a long time to have to wait for justice. And we're just glad that we could do our part in serving up our portion of justice. And now we have to wait for our day in court, of course, along together with the family.
Understood. Can you tell us anything about what led you to be able to solve it now? I mean, you started as sheriff, what, a year and a half or so after this occurred. So you take over, murders have already occurred, investigation has already started. Can you give us any insight into how you were able to crack the case?
Yes, sir. Well, I would say that, we were off to a good start. The previous administration, of course, had a couple of detectives that were off to a good start. We had numerous amount of detectives that worked on it when I came into office, and we kept fresh eyes on it. We kept it at the forefront of the media and the public's minds, so that if there was ever any new information, somebody would come forward. But we knew all along, to be honest with you, we knew this day would come. We knew it was the Velardes, but it's what you have to prove is not always what you know.
You know, it always amazes me when stuff like this happens. It's like, on one hand, how can I put it? On one hand, it does not surprise me, but on the other hand, it still amazes me because I just don't see how anyone can bring themselves to do something like this. I mean, for one, killing your own family members is bad enough. But to go on interviews, sit in front of camera after camera, crying, fake crocodile tears, that takes a special kind of evil, a special kind of crazy. And like I said, don't get me wrong, what she is accused of doing, that's evil and crazy enough. Killing someone is evil and crazy enough. Killing your family is evil and crazy enough. But sitting down in front of cameras, crying, criticizing investigators. These people had the nerve to criticize the investigators for not finding the killers yet, when it looks like they're the killers. The audacity of it all. But man, people are crazy these days. People are freaking nutso. And I hope you all realize that and operate accordingly. Even around family. You got family, you think this is, here's my favorite cousin, we're going to have a little cookout. No, they kill the whole family and then go on the news and cry about it and act as if they didn't do it. But I feel like this is like a trend that we're seeing lately. So many killers are returning to the scene of the crime. Killers doing interviews. They seem to like to stay close, to the investigation, stay close to the case. And, I believe there was a time where that tactic would work, right? Back in the day, you would never expect the woman who's crying all over the news to have done the crime. But in 2023, with the true crime community operating the way it does, oh boy, if you are anywhere near anything, they are going to look at you. They are going to pick you apart. It doesn't matter if you had nothing to do with it. You're going to be accused of it. You know what I mean? So this happened in 2015. So I think that she dodged a lot of the heat that you would usually get from the true crime community. If this case were to have happened in 2022, 2023, they would have tore that girl apart. I'm telling you, would have had the bullhorn, bitch, all of the people. They would have tore this person apart. The true crime community does not play, man. I can only imagine how they would have picked this story apart. But yeah, it's crazy to me that we have these type of people surrounding us who are not only capable of committing such a heinous act, but they're capable of putting on this facade, putting on this fake face and acting emotional. And to me, this might sound weird, but that's even more crazy and evil than the act itself, in a way. Like, I honestly feel like it takes a certain, like you have to be even more evil and crazy to literally sit down in front of a camera and try to play things off like you weren't involved in this. But I think we live in a day and age where people are so wrapped up in themselves that they literally believe their own lies sometimes. People convince themselves of their own lies, even though they know they're lying. And that's why they do such a good job of, you know, pretending that they're not involved in things that they're involved in. But I just thought this was interesting. I remember this story catching my eye back in 2015, well before I was on YouTube covering stuff like this. And it's weird finally, you know, seeing some closure here and stuff like that. But let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. If you're feeling generous, you could send a donation via Cash App or Super Thanks. Also, you can help the channel for free by liking the video and subscribing. But with that being said, remember to always remain opinionated.